today we'll see how to work with Jenkins build orchestration tool. So we'll start with the installation and configuration of Jenkins, and we'll see how we can able to work with the Jenkins admin activities, as well as we'll see how we can able to set up your Jenkins master and slave node configurations and creating a CSV pipe and all the stuff. In order to work with the installation configuration Jenkins, right? So I'll be sharing you an official documentation here. So if you can see my screen, so there's a page from where you can able to get the complete details about the installation procedure. On which machine you want to install Jenkins, you can use that corresponding link here. So if you're going to install on Linux, these are the steps to be followed. So for any machine, there are certain prerequisites we need to take care with respect to hardware as well as the software requirements. And then if it is a Linux, means depends upon distribution. Like if you're working on Ubuntu, these are the steps to be followed to install Jenkins. The actual installation statement is here actually, apt get or apt install git or Jenkins. But these are all the prerequisites. We have to download the repository, Jenkins repositories. We have to download the IO keys, everything. And after downloading the package, then you're going to install it. Similarly, if you want to work on any other distribution, just go through that specific option. So only the package manager varies. Okay. Apart from that, the libraries, repositories, everything is same. So for this demo, I'm going to create AWS instance. You can create your own account, manage all your servers by yourself so that you'll get more hands-on experience in working with Linux machines and starting with installation configurations. Here in this case, I'm going to use Ubuntu machine. It will be like 22.04 version of AMI. And Jenkins is not just like a tool as how you installed on your Git and all. Git is just a tool. You can use Git through your CLI. But Jenkins means it is something considered as a service. It runs as a service in the target machine. Whatever the machine you're going to use, whether it's a Windows or Mac or Linux, in any machine you install, it will be running it as a service. And by default, Jenkins runs in port 8080. So this is the default port for Jenkins. So in real-time environment, as a DevOps engineers will be responsible to manage Jenkins servers. Like we'll be managing Jenkins master nodes and the build servers and all. So on this Jenkins master node, we install Jenkins and it will be executed in port 8080. Once you launch the node, you have to enable the port number. Just enable port 8080 so that you can access the Jenkins service through your web browser, right? And when it comes to software requirement, this is the prerequisite. So for the installation of Jenkins, first you have to install JDK. JDK is a prerequisite. Once JDK is installed, then you can able to install Jenkins on top of it. So that is what I was talking about here, right? We have Jenkins master node. So what is the purpose of Jenkins master here? Ultimately, it is used to create some CI/CD pipeline projects. In order to automate your builds and deployments, in order to continuously integrate your changes or deploy your changes, we use Jenkins master node. And also we can able to schedule those projects or jobs to run in this slave node. So this is a purpose. What are all the tools you're going to install that matters? So first we'll see how to work with Jenkins master. Then I will get into the slave node configuration and all. So once you're clear with the purpose, then you need to be very clear about the tools. If you are going to launch one VM and if you want to consider it as Jenkins master, means what are the tools you need to install in that machine? That matters. To execute Jenkins, you need JDK and you install Jenkins. And also there is something called automated, triggering of a job. So for all those things, you can use Git also. So in any Jenkins server, you need JDK, Jenkins, and then Git. In order to work on this Jenkins master node, I have prepared a separate documentation for your reference. So what you're going to do here is you're going to launch Amazon EC2 instance. You can use Ubuntu 22.04 version and it can be of T2 micro instance type. Sometimes if you are running multiple jobs or if that server is not sufficient to handle the workload, you can choose T2 medium also. That's not an issue. But only T2 micro is eligible for free tier account. T2 medium will be, it is a paid service. It means it won't cost you much. Okay. Just if you want, you can compare the pricing also. If your Jenkins server is unable to handle the workload, you can scale up the configuration because this T2 micro comes with 1 GB RAM and 1 CPU. That is optional, completely optional. If you want, you can upgrade it. Second thing is, once you launch the node, you have to update the security group of that node. You have to edit that inbound rule and add port 8080 because as I said, Jenkins runs in port 8080. If you want to access Jenkins server through your web browser, you need to enable port 8080. Once we enabled it, then using MobileXterm or through any other SSH agent, you can log into that node and you can install the required tools. So as I said, we have some tools like Git, JDK, and Jenkins to be installed. So using your root user privilege, you can install the required tools here. Here I'm just updating default package, installing Git, installing JDK, and then we'll be installing the actual tool. So these 4 lines of code, I just took it from this official page. We are going to work on Ubuntu. So these are things. I just copied from here only, nothing else. Once Jenkins is installed, you should able to verify the status of Jenkins. You can able to start, stop, or restart. Everything is possible. And then you can able to use that external IP address of the machine followed by the port 8080 to access that machine. So these are the process involved in order to set up a Jenkins service. So now let me log into my console. We have two sets. Okay, if you can go to this official page itself, we are just using the package manager. Apart from that, there is something called releases. If you can see the releases, you can able to pick up the previous version of your Jenkins version, and you can able to download the WAR file. Jenkins.war file will be the executable. If you download it manually using wget command, means it can be downloaded to one particular location from the start your service. That is also possible. Even in my Windows machine also, I have Jenkins up and running. I just downloaded the zip file of the package, and I'm just managing in my desired path. So everything is possible. So once you get into this thing and understand the basics, you can able to build anything on top of it. So now that I've launched, I just log into my console. So now let's launch a node. Let it be like SK, or I can just tag it as Jenkins Master for now. It is just a name, okay? Like you can able to maintain it or customize at any point of time. And I'm going to choose Ubuntu, and let's go with Ubuntu 20.04 version. It is also eligible for free tier account, correct? So Ubuntu 22.04 long-term support. And you can leave this T2 micro as a default instance type. While working on your Jenkins, if you find your performance is not up to the level, or if it is taking more time to load, you can increase your instance type from T2 micro to T2 medium. T2 medium will be with 2 CPUs and 4 GB RAM if required. Otherwise, unnecessarily don't spend anything here, correct? And key pair that is used to securely access your instance from your external SSH agent. If you don't have key pair, you can create a new one. Otherwise, you can use the existing one, which you use by default. And let's leave all the parameters default. I'm not going to concern about all these things now because already we are working on free tier. Let's go with the default settings for now. Honestly, don't create unwanted resources. Okay, what is your objective? Just focus on it. And let it be a one instance here. That's it. So I repeat, go to your EC2 instance dashboard, launch your instance on the launch panel, enter the name of the resource you're going to create. It is just a tag that can be changed at any point of time, and choose the AMI Amazon machine image as Ubuntu 22.04. The latest version is 24, but can use 22.04 as a stable version, and choose T2 micro as instance type, and key pair you can refer the existing one. So with all these parameters, if you launch the instance, you can see my node is available now. Let's go back to my dashboard, and in few seconds it'll be up and running. So as we all know, whenever we launch a node, we'll be getting our public IP and private IP address. So using public IP, you can able to access your machine from external network. So we just complete the very first step of launching the node. Once the node is ready, the next step is to update your inbound rule. So just go to your instance, select the instance, and here you can see something called security tab. And here by default, this node comes with port 22, through which you can access your, enable your secure access connection. And now select the security group that is associated to this instance. Click on it, and here you can find an option to edit your inbound rules. So by default, we have port 22. Let's add one more port here, 8080, and update your serial blocks as zeros for now and save the rule. So now let's go back to our dashboard and log into our node now. So let me get into take the public IP of the machine. I'm going to use MobileXterm. If you're comfortable using PuTTY, you can use that. And here we'll be using our remote host name as a public IP of the machine. And I'll be using the default username as Ubuntu for our Ubuntu machine. And under advanced SS settings, select your private key and click on this browse button to navigate to your directory where you maintain all your keys, key pair. So in your case, it will be available in downloads folder, right? Just go to downloads folder and select the PEM file, which is associated to the instance. That's it. So once you have the instance access, let's elevate our access to root level, sudo -i. Now, as a root user, you're going to manage all the required Jenkins tools. All right, starting from updating default packages, installing required tools, everything. So as a root user, first let me update the default packages. So once we have this package updated, the next step is to install JDK. No need to worry about the Git tool, okay? When you launch your Ubuntu machine, right, the latest version of your Linux box, whether it is your Ubuntu or CentOS or RHEL, that AMI by default comes with Git tool. If you want, you can verify it by using git version command. If Git is not present in this machine, in that case, you can use your apt install git command and access it, install it. Otherwise, by default, Git will be part of your AMI. So it is available, so you can directly access it. Now, the next step is to install JDK. So for the installation of JDK, you can refer this command, sudo apt install OpenJDK 17. It is something, you can refer it from your official page itself if you wish. Like in my official documentation here, I want to install an Ubuntu machine. So for the installation of JDK, right? If you scroll down, you can see some steps here. So here we can able to identify all the latest versions or compatible versions to your Java. So that is what I just documented here. You can refer this OpenJDK 17. Don't use OpenJDK 11 because Jenkins stopped its support of using JDK 11. So it is recommended to use 17 or above. So let's install this. So we are installing JDK now. So once JDK is installed, you can verify the version. This is a version we have installed, OpenJDK 17.0.12. It is available. Now you can go ahead and install your Jenkins related repositories and IO keys to install Jenkins. So these 4 lines of commands are available in the same document. Okay, don't go with any weekly result, just go with the long-term support, LTS. These are the 4 lines. I just take it from here and let me execute one by one. If you want to run everything together, so it is a process of downloading all the required repositories, dependencies to install. And if you can see here, apt update, all the repositories, whatever we downloaded, it's all getting refreshed and we can able to install Jenkins in this machine. It's installing now. So installation is completed. Now it is making Jenkins as a startup service. It means whenever you start your VM, automatically this Jenkins service will be up and running. It is just enabling the Jenkins service now as a startup task. Almost done. So now if you can see here the version of Jenkins, it's available here. And whenever we install Jenkins, right, the default path for Jenkins, if you use apt package manager or package manager to install, you can use cd var lib/Jenkins. So this is the default directory for your Jenkins. In this directory, you can find the Jenkins package, the component has been installed. Correct. So as an administrator, we'll be very frequently utilizing these features and all. Like for example, consider the very first responsibility. Like I was talking about the plugins management, user management, Jenkins security management, right? So all these things are actually stored in this particular home directory. Like for example, if you can see here, there is a folder called plugins. As of now, there is nothing because we just installed Jenkins. There are some post-installation activities to be done. So Jenkins comes with the default package. This plugins we have to install now. Similarly, if you go to this secrets folder, you can able to see the default security features like the initial password to unlock your Jenkins, everything will be available here. Like this, you can able to get into this path and manage Jenkins servers, right? And tomorrow when you create any job, the jobs can be job definition will maintain this folder. And the configured XML is going to define the default properties of your Jenkins. Like what are things you're going to talk about, right? Global system configurations. So the entire default properties will be maintained in this config file. So this is about your installation. Once Jenkins is installed, already in our Linux module, we talked about the service level definitions and all, right? So we have something called systemctl command. So sometimes what happens, when you try to access a Jenkins service, it might not be available for access through web browser. So if you want to quickly check the status of that service, you can use systemctl status followed by the service name. So now you can see Jenkins service is up and running. It is active now. Like this, if you want to stop that service or start or restart or enable, make Jenkins as a late default startup service, you can use these commands. Correct. So if you want to restart your Jenkins service, you can do this through command line utility. Now you can see Jenkins is installed. And if you want to access Jenkins through your web browser, go to your instance, take the public IP address of the machine. Already we have configured the security group with port 8080, right? Jenkins by default runs in port 8080. So this is what the default port for Jenkins. If you get the status of the Jenkins service, you can see it is a service up and running and HD port is 8080. Correct. So now you can take the public IP address of the machine and use port 8080 to access that service. I just use the public IP address of that machine where we install Jenkins followed by port 8080. So in order to access Jenkins through web browser, open your web browser and enter the public IP address of the machine where you install Jenkins followed by the port 8080. So now I can see I'm able to access Jenkins service through my web browser, but there are some post installation activities to be done. As in, if you install Jenkins for the very first time, right, on any node, there are some post-installation activities to be done. So first thing is to unlock Jenkins service. So to unlock Jenkins, it is giving a recommendation to get into this path, get into the file and access the initial password to unlock Jenkins. So if you want, you can copy this path and give a cat command here. You'll get that password. It is actually present in this folder. Okay, if you navigate to that CD directory, you can able to access the file from that path. Okay, so just give a cat command to that file name and you can get the initial password and have it here. Now, once you unlock Jenkins, the next step is to customize Jenkins. That means I showed you here, there is no plugins at this point of time, right? The plugins folder is completely empty. We have to install all the recommended plugins now. So to do that, on this page, select this option, install suggested plugins. Install, that means Jenkins will decide what are plugins needed. It will automatically install the required plugins actually. If you want, you can choose custom plugins also, but it is not recommended because without proper knowledge, if you miss anything, again, it leads to some manual work. You have to manually install it. So in order to eliminate all those manual effort, just go with the recommended approach. Install the suggested plugins as per Jenkins approach. Select this first option here. Now it is getting installed. You can see it is in progress. In the meantime, if you navigate to this path and if you say ls, now you can see the plugins are getting installed in this directory. It might take some time, depends upon your bandwidth, network bandwidth. It's a huge list. This is how Jenkins is very much popular. Okay, it is having extensive plugin support to all your DevOps implementations or any sort of process automation, integrating with any external tools. All is in the default plugins. It's almost done. So now that it's installed all the required plugins, and you can see these are the huge list of plugins that get installed now Jenkins server. Now, once this is done, the next page, it expect to create the very first admin user. So now you need to be very careful because as I said, you're going to play a role of an administrator. Correct. So you're going to create one admin user ID here. So let me create one. So please ensure that you enter your valid username and enter the password and confirm password. And please remember the password. It's very much important. Correct. So as administrator, while creating a password, you should know your responsibility here. If you're from development team or any general user, you can say that you forgot your password. But as administrator, you should not get in a situation. Administrators should not forget. They should pay more attention while creating a password. Okay, so just ensure that you give a valid password and remember it. So we are just trying to create one admin user entry in our Jenkins own user database. That's it. Let me save this and continue. Now, on this instance configuration page, you can see there is an option to update our Jenkins server URL. So this URL will get updated in the global system configuration on your Jenkins dashboard. You can see that. But since we are using our free tier account and this is instance, whatever we create, the public IP address will change whenever you restart your service, right? Whenever you restart your VM, this public IP will change. So there is no point in setting up this or saving this at this point of time. Even if you skip this also, it's okay for now. But in real-time environment, we'll be having a dedicated URL. It can be your elastic or static IP address, or we'll be mapping with some DNS. You'll be giving a DNS name here, which will never change. But for this demo server, you can just skip this option. All right, now my Jenkins service is up and running. Let me start using this Jenkins now. So with this, we can able to get into our Jenkins dashboard. So once you get into this Jenkins dashboard, there are some options to use. Like on top right, you can see there is an option to log out, or you can able to check your user profile, right? And the left side, you can see something called new item to create a new Jenkins projects. And then the build history that is used to identify the list of builds, the status of the builds. If you want, you can verify from here. And my views are used to create some custom views for your Jenkins jobs. Like for example, consider in my real-time environment, we can have Jenkins jobs create for multiple environments. Like I can create a Jenkins job for my dev environment or QA or UAT environments, or I can have a dedicated jobs for some teams actually, right? So you can able to logically partition or create a view for each and every environment or the teams. It's just a process of organizing your jobs. That's it for easy access. And apart from there's something called build executor status, and we have something called build queue. So this build executor status is used to execute a job. Okay, you can see 0 of 2 executors available. So by default, we have 2 build executors. So what is the need for build executor means? It helps to enable some parallel builds actually. For example, if I want to run 2 jobs at the same time, I can have 2 build executors here. If I want, I can able to increase it. If I update the build executors value as 5, I can able to run 5 jobs simultaneously. 5 builds can able to perform the same time. Consider a scenario. I have just 2 executors available now. So it means I can run 2 jobs in parallel. Now, what if I triggered 10 jobs at the same time? I just have 2 build executors, but I triggered 10 jobs. So what will happen means it pick up the very first 2 jobs and the remaining 8 jobs will be waiting the build queue. So build queue is used to maintain the list of jobs that are waiting for the executor. So once these 2 jobs status is completed, it will pick up the second set and execute it. Like that, the jobs will be automatically created in the build queue if the build executor is not available at that point of time. It's all part of scheduling actually. Jenkins will take care of it. Now, the next thing is, very important thing is manage Jenkins. So this is where we are going to perform all system admin related activities. Like I was talking about all these things, right? Like plugin management tools, user, Jenkins security, global credentials, right? So all these things we are going to work from this manage Jenkins option. Usually administrators alone will be having access to this page. Tomorrow, if any developer wants to access Jenkins job means we won't give them access to all these things, because as we discussed already, developers are just the consumers. They will not have any admin related activities, but as an admin, you will be owning all these things. So first we'll see how to work with your plugins management. Already we have installed some plugins, but still, if you want to manage some additional plugins, you can go to manage Jenkins option. From this dashboard, you can see something called system configurations, security and all, right? So under system configuration is something called plugins. All right. So just get into this option and you can see we are on this plugins page where you can find some options like install plugins, available plugins, advanced settings and all. So the plugins, whatever you installed as part of your post-installation activities, everything's available here. That means what all things you're seeing from the server, right? All these things are accessible through your dashboard here. So as part of plugins management, you can able to enable or disable the plugin. Let's say we have the AND plugin installed by default. You can see AND plugin is available, right? So if you don't want this AND plugin, means you can simply disable it. Or if it is really not required, if you want to uninstall, there is an option to uninstall this. So from this dashboard itself, you can able to quickly enable or disable your plugin, or you can uninstall this. This is what plugin management means. Like this, any plugin, if you want, you can able to search and manage it. Like if I want to search for Gradle, Gradle is another build tool. We have Gradle plugin. Let me check if you have Maven. Maven is not there. It is not part of the default package. I can see there is a Git tool available here. If I search for Docker, tomorrow if I want to work in Docker, I need Docker plugins. Docker plugin is not part of default package. Let me check for Kubernetes. Kubernetes is also not part of the default package, right? So like this, you can able to enable, disable, or uninstall the plugin from this page, install plugin page. If you want to install any new plugins, you can go to the available plugins tab and search for the plugin. Let's say I want to install a plugin for Maven. See, we have Maven integration plugin available. Maven is a build tool, okay, which is used to build your Java-based web application projects actually. So using Jenkins, if you want to automate the build, you can use this Maven plugin. So if you want to install this plugin, go to the available plugins tab, search for the plugin and choose a plugin and select install. Easy. So while installing, if you want to restart your Jenkins service, there is an option to enable it. So this command will safely restart your Jenkins upon installation. If required, you can do it. Otherwise, you can ignore it. Easy. So this download progress tab will show you the progress of your downloads. What are things you're downloading? What is the status of it? Everything's available from here. Now, if you go back to install plugins, you can able to see Maven is installed here. Easy. So this is how you install any new plugin to Jenkins. Now, apart from this, there is another important thing to understand here. Let's say, for an example, I can take any plugin. Like I think I don't have Docker plugin installed already. I showed you, right? Yeah, Docker is not present. So what we can do, we can go to available plugins tab and search for Docker. I have Docker plugins available. So if you want to install this, what we should do here, we can select the plugin and click on install. If I do this, Jenkins will try to install the latest version of this plugin. Latest version is Docker 1.7.0. But sometimes, there'll be a demand or requirement to install the previous version of the plugin. It is a very common requirement. Okay, development team might expect the latest version will not be supportive, or sometimes we consider the latest version as an unstable version. We always go with present -1, right? So in that case, if you want to install the previous version of the plugin, it's very simple. Instead of installing it from here, just open that, right click on the plugin name and open that plugin page. So jenkins.io/the plugin. So this is a documentation, official documentation from Jenkins for this Docker plugin. Like this, for each and every plugin, you have a document. All right. And I should tell one more thing here, like Jenkins is very good in its documentation. It is one of the very powerful self-documented tool, actually. If you want to learn about Jenkins, or if you want to explore more things on Jenkins, you don't need to search anywhere. Okay. That Jenkins official page itself will get you a complete picture about all the important things. This documentation, whatever I shared, right? This link from where you install Jenkins. So you will get a complete reference guidance of this Jenkins. Okay, so please bookmark this page. Now, my requirement is I want to install the previous version of Jenkins, right? So what I can do here, I can select the plugin and I can go to the official page. In this official page, you will get the complete picture about the Jenkins plugin, what the plugin is all about, how to set up the plugin and how to use the plugin Jenkins project, what are the parameters needed, how to troubleshoot anything, any issues like that. We'll be getting complete picture about any plugin you want. So from this page, if you select the releases tab, you can see various releases available here. So the latest release is 1.7.0 and the previous version is 1.6.2. So if you're not interested to go with the latest version, go to the release tab and get into that particular version, like 1.6.2, for example. Right click on that version number and copy that link address. Got it? And in real-time environment, it will be our regular exercise, actually. Once in 3 months or once in 6 months, we have to review the existing plugins and we have to do a proper periodic upgrade and all, right? Even that is what I was mentioning here, periodic upgrade of Jenkins and plugins. I'll talk about it. Now, from this page, once you get that link address, and if you want to install this particular version, go back to Manage Jenkins plugins option, and here you can see something called Advanced Settings. Can you see this? Advanced Settings tab. From here, there is something called Deploy Plugin option and URL. That's it. So directly use this URL and click on Deploy. Now, this will download the Docker version which you have mentioned in that Advanced Settings option. Once this is available, you can go to your Install Plugins tab and verify the installed plugin. See here, it has installed Docker 1.6.2 along with its additional dependent components. And in the meantime, if you observe this updates field, it is having one update available. What it could be here, this is for the latest version of Docker, which is available for installation, right? Our current Jenkins server is running with previous version of Docker, so it is giving a recommendation that we have this version available. So just think on an admin perspective, okay? Like as an administrator, it is our core responsibility to update it. So if you find any updates available here, right, you should first get into that release and understand what are the features they've introduced in this version. What are the major issues they fixed? Okay, and whether these features are really required for your current requirement or not. If it is really required and if it's going to add more value, you can go ahead and upgrade your tool. Otherwise, let it be not required. So this is all about managing your plugins on Jenkins. So you should know how to navigate to your Manage Jenkins option, get the plugins, and verify the installed plugins for upgrade or enable or disable or uninstall. As well as you should know how to install new plugins, whether it is the latest version or the previous version, you should know how to install it, and then how to upgrade your version. So if you want to upgrade, just select that version and click on update. It'll get updated. The version of Jenkins, whatever you're using, right? This version should be compatible with the version which you're going to install, correct? So always your plugins should be compatible with the version what you install here. So here the dependencies like 3 things. First thing is your JDK. The JDK version should be compatible with Jenkins. And similarly, the plugin whatever we're going to use should be compatible with the latest version of Jenkins whatever you installed. So you should do such study before you actually do such upgrade or downgrade, correct? All right, so this is all about your plugins management. So the next thing is about the tools management. So I'll show you how to manage your tools and all, but I'll be showing you with a demo once we start with our pipeline projects. Okay, so basically tools management is used to identify the tools that are required for your projects. So just go to your dashboard. From here, you can navigate to Manage Jenkins. And here, there is something called Tools Management. Can you see this option? So if you get into this option here, you can able to find the list of tools that are available for configuration. Like we can see something called JDK, Git, Gradle, and Maven, Docker. It's all depends upon the plugins that you installed. Say, for example, consider I want to use Maven plugin, Maven tool actually in my on one of my projects to perform build. So we have to identify the default installation path of Maven actually, right? So if you click on Add Maven, you can find there is an option to update the Maven home directory. So just give the name of the tool and specify in which path the Maven is installed so that Jenkins can able to identify that for the particular project. Similarly, it is applied for any tool like Git or JDK. You can able to add your JDK home directory. Everything is possible here. So tomorrow while working on our slave nodes, right, we'll be configuring multiple slave nodes with multiple tools with different versions and all. So consider in slave node 1, I use Maven 2.8 version. In slave node 2, I use Maven 3.1 version. Just for an example, I'm saying. So you have to explicitly identify the name of the tool and in which path that particular version is installed so that the project can able to quickly identify that Maven executable and run your build. So tomorrow, once we start with our CSD pipeline project, I'll come back to this page and I'll show you how to set up your Maven tool and refer it in our CSD pipeline. All right. This is about the tools. It is promptly used to manage the home directory for your build tools. Now, the next thing is something about the system configuration. So this is about the global system configuration. So what is the need for this option means? It is used to define the default properties. Like you can see here, the home directory for Jenkins, and you can able to define some system message also. Like this is demo Jenkins server. Like this, I can tag it. In real-time environment, in one of my projects, I have two servers. One is for my non-prod and thing for prod. So I can tag, I just tag it as a Jenkins not prod server and Jenkins production server. Like that, we can have some server references here. And you can able to specify all the default properties of the service. Like you can able to customize or change your Jenkins URL from here. And something related to your external system. Like tomorrow, if you want to access any remote servers, you'll be enabling those servers or configuring servers default directories and the host name, all those details from here. And not only that, we have something called notification services, like email notification services. So through Jenkins pipeline, if you want to send any email notifications to any user, we have to first set up the email server basically. It can be your Outlook, Microsoft Outlook server or Gmail server. Specify the server configuration here. And once it is configured, you can able to handle it through your projects. Not only this, tomorrow you might be integrating the Jenkins service with your Docker build environment, or it can be integrated with the Kubernetes cluster, right? So how Jenkins can able to interact with Kubernetes cluster means we can able to enable the connectivity between the servers. So such server configurations, remote server configuration can be done from this global system configuration. All right. So just save these changes, what have we made now? Click on apply and save it. Easy. Now, the next important thing is about the user management. So this user management is something used to create some users. Let's say I'll get into this option called security. And here I can see something called users. Using this option, I can able to create some users. As of you can see, there's only one user created, the initial admin user. And it is created in the Jenkins own user database. So where this database is present means, just go to your system here. And here you can see something called users folder. If you navigate to that folder, you can able to find the directory. So this is what Jenkins consider as a default user database. So if you navigate to that folder, this is something used to maintain the user profile, this configured XML file. So Jenkins uses the XML file format to maintain its configuration. So if I get the content of this file, I can see it contains information about all the basic properties of the user, like the full name or the ID, and the password is saved as an encrypted form. All right. And also we have something called the default email ID. All the default profile will be made in this file here. Like this, if you want to create any other user, for example, consider I want to create one new user here. So just go to your Manage Jenkins option. From here, under Security tab, select the users. And from this Jenkins own user database panel, click on Create User. So now you can able to create a new user here. Let it be like, that's it. So now that we have created the new user, let me create another user also if you want. We can able to create any number of users and maintain in the Jenkins own user database. And at any point of time, you can get into this page and customize the change user details. Like if you want, you can delete or you can able to update the password, right? It is possible. You can able to change the user properties, the email ID or the default password, whatever they are sent. Everything can be customizable from this page, correct? Now, as soon as I create the user here, that user profile is available in this folder. See here, there is a separate folder created for user 1 and user 2. So in these folders also, you can find something called config.xml file. Easy. So this is what we call it as Jenkins own user database to manage the Jenkins users. So this Jenkins own user database is considered as an entity for enabling the user authentication. As a user, if you want to access Jenkins service, first you have to log into that, right? So that initial user login, that user authentication will be taken care by this Jenkins own user database as a default one. Correct. So there are two terms here. One is your user authentication, and another thing is user authorization. So user authentication will be taken care by your Jenkins own user database by default. I'm saying, clear. And similarly, this user authorization also we can able to handle it through your security. I mean Jenkins security realm. Okay. So through this option, we can able to update or enable the user authorization. Authentication helps to allow the user to access, right? But what he can access, what is the level of access, that will be decided by the authorization parameters. So once you have the users available, you can go back to your manage Jenkins option, and under security tab, you can find something called security option. So users option will allow the users to log into Jenkins service, but the security option helps to allow the user to enable with some access, like what are the actions you can perform. So if you go to the security option here you can able to find two things. One is your authentication, another thing is authorization. So for authentication, your Jenkins uses the default option like Jenkins own user database. And apart from that, if you want, you can able to enable with your ADOs or Active Directories or LDAP server configurations at enterprise level. Or if you enabled LDAP server or ADO with a single sign-on option, that is also possible. But by default, it is Jenkins own user database. And now on this authorization level, we have something called matrix-based security. So through this option, we can able to allow or assign access to the users. Say for example, I have a user called user1 created, right? So as a user, what are all the permissions I can able to assign to that user that matters. Similarly, if I try any other user, see here, user not found. It means it is trying to search this user details from this Jenkins own user database. In this database, we don't have such user, right? So let me remove that user from here. Let me add user 2. It should be available now. Got it? Now, the point is, as a user, consider he's part of a DevOps team, and I want to consider user 1 as another administrator, means I can simply enable the overall administrator access. So once I enable the overall admin access, as a user 1, I can log in. As of now, I just log in as a default admin user ID. If I want, I can able to log in with this ID, user 1 with the valid password, and I can able to control the entire system activities. It's possible. Or if he is from development team, if you want to give some limited access, means as per his role, you can able to define some privileges. Like for example, if any developers can able to read the job, they can able to get into the jobs workspace, and they can able to build or cancel the job, right? They can able to read the views where they can find their jobs, right? Like this, we can able to give some selected privileges to the users. So what level of access you want to provide, that will be decided by this security option here. So this is how we manage Jenkins security. Okay, it is a very primary activity, but apart from that, as per the enterprise level, we have a lot of security policies enabled. So in that case, we have to integrate our ADOs, that Active Directories and LDAP servers with that Jenkins service and enable the user authentication authorization. So this is all about managing users and managing security. And apart from all these things, there is something called credentials manager. So this credential manager also will be available from your manage Jenkins. Let me get into this option. Here's something called credentials, right? So what is the purpose of this means? Consider a scenario. I just want to access my external resource. I want to connect to my external server. It can be anything, like can be my Kubernetes cluster, or it can be my Docker hub, or it can be my GitHub repositories, right? From Jenkins, if you want to access your GitHub repository, which is a private repository, means you have to provide the GitHub access token here. I can get into this option and add one new credential here. And what type of credential you want to create, whether it is a username with password or any other options with SS username with private keys and all. If you want to create a for your Jenkins or GitHub, let it be username with password, and the username you can specify and enter the password, the token, whatever you generated there. All right. And if you want to treat this as a secret, just enable this option, you get encrypted and specify the ID, GitHub access token 1, and the description can be the same, no problem. So like this, I can able to create the credential for accessing the remote server. Create it. It will be available here. So tomorrow through my Jenkins project, if I want to access the GitHub server, GitHub repository, I can pass this ID as an input. So this ID composed of my username and the access token, which helps me to clone the repositories or publish the changes to the repositories through Jenkins pipeline. Easy. So like this, not only for GitHub, even you can able to use it for your Docker Hub, or tomorrow while working on Kubernetes or any other remote server, credentials can be maintained here. Even your Jenkins Master slave configurations, you need the credentials for the slave nodes, right? So it's all possible. So at this point, you should know how to get into all these options, and you should know the purpose of all these things now, right? Starting from plugins management tools, user security management, as well as global system configurations. So better, I'll show you one quick example, okay, how to create a project in Jenkins Master, and then I'll come to this Master Slave architecture. So now we'll see how to create Jenkins project. So it is also referred as jobs, Jenkins projects or jobs. And we are going to create this on Jenkins Master node. See, we have the architecture like Jenkins Master and Slave, right? Jenkins Master is basically used to create the job and schedule it to run in the slave node if you have slave node configured. But I told you already in our last session itself, it is not mandatory to have your slave nodes. It is purely depends upon the infrastructure. Let's say I have very frequent builds. I want to create frequent builds, and I have a huge set of applications stack. Means in order to distribute the workload, I can able to have my slave node and share the or schedule the load. But consider I'm running an application project where I have very less number of builds. Hardly one or two will happen once in a day or twice a day. Okay, and I have very less release frequency also. Maybe once in a month or twice I do some releases. So if the intensity, if the volume of your application builds and the release frequency is very less, and if you're working on only one type of application like Java kind of thing, means then you can able to run your entire builds and deployments through Jenkins Master itself. Jenkins Master also capable to run your jobs. Okay. So on a larger scale, it is recommended to go with a slave node configuration. Otherwise, you can use through Jenkins Master itself. So now I'll show you how to create a Jenkins project on Jenkins Master node and run those jobs. So let me go back to my Jenkins dashboard here. See, my job server configuration access is very smooth, right? You can see as soon as I navigate to any other page, the page is getting loaded instantly. It means the health status is really good actually. Sometimes, if you navigate to any other job or if you try to handle any other bills, it might take time to load the page. So in such situations, you should understand that you dump a lot of things in this machine and your T2 micro is not capable to handle that load. So in such situations, you can stop that instance and then select the instance, go to your actions tab, and there's something called instance state, and you can find one option called change instance type. This option will be enabled only if this instance is top state. And from there, you can change it to T2 medium and continue work if required. So now we'll see how to create a new Jenkins job here. So let me go back to my Jenkins dashboard. From here, you can see something called new item. If you click on this option, you can find there is an option to create a job. So just enter the job name. It'll be anything, like we can create one freestyle project. There are some templates. Item type means template, whether you want to create a freestyle project or any Maven project or pipeline projects, depends upon your requirement. So in general, the Jenkins project will be of two categories. One we call it as a freestyle project, and another thing is your pipeline projects. So these freestyle projects are custom made, okay? Like you can able to manually configure each and every stages of your job, whatever task you want to perform, it will be completely a manual effort. You have to manually configure it. So in real-time environment, we never use this Freecell project to onboard any applications. It is just for our internal references or to do some sort of testing plugins and all. Correct. But actual implementation is based upon the pipeline projects. So these pipeline projects are based on Groovy scripts. So what are all the tasks you can able to perform with Freecell project that can be converted or written as a Groovy script to execute, and it composed of various stages. So let's go to our dashboard. From this dashboard, if you click on new item, it will take you to a page where you can enter the name of the job. It will be like SK Freestyle. It will be project 1 for now. So just choose a template as Freecell project and then click on OK. This will create a new project and will take you to the configurations by default. So at this point of time, if you go to your Jenkins dashboard, you can see one project has been created here. All right. So we are on the configuration page now. So at any point of time, you can go to dashboard and you can see the job name here. If you get into the job, you can see the jobs dashboard. From this job dashboard, you can see the status of a job, the changes, the workspace, build or configuration, delete or rename the projects. Now the control is already in the configuration page. So in this configuration page, you can see something like a general options, general parameters. If you want to manage your source code repository, you can use the source code management, build triggers, build environments, build step, and then post build actions. So on the general tab, you have some options like this. Like this is a description. Usually, while creating a job, it is recommended to give some valid description for what purpose you're creating the job. What are the inputs you're going to manage? Okay, what will be the outcome of this? What will be the input for this? So you can give a quick description about the job. And then we have some default properties. And tomorrow, if you want to access your remote repository through this job, you have the source code management. So if you enable the Git option here, it will ask for Git repository URL and the credentials that is required for your GitHub access. See, the credentials, whatever we managed, we created here earlier, it is available now. So this is how I can enter the repository clone URL, and to access the repository, I need this credential. That is how it is mapped. And from which branch you want to manage the changes, everything can be maintained manually here. And then we have something called build triggers. This is just to automate your builds. Like as soon as I commit the changes, I want to trigger the build means I can enable it from here. And very important thing on this page is about your build step and the post build step. So build step means it is going to define the actual task going to perform on this job. So if you get in this option here, there is something called add build step, and you can able to find a lot of options available. These options are based upon the plugins you install so far. Okay. And we have some options like execute shell, or if you want to execute your Maven build, right? We can able to run these things. So if I give a command option like execute shell, I can able to run some shell commands here. Let it be like echo, something like this. So using this step, I can able to run any shell commands. Why I choose execute shell means this Jenkins service is running on my Linux machine. So I can run some shell commands. If I installed on my Mac or Windows machine means I can add a build step and run the bash, execute Windows bash command. Like that depends upon the environment, you can choose this option. There it will be like a PowerShell commands. So now once you create a build step, you can save your job. Apply command will just save the job. Okay. And also you can able to enable some post build actions. So under post build action, you have something like a lot of things. Okay. Like sometimes what happens, once the job is completed, we have to trigger another job. Like there'll be some sort of upstream and downstream dependencies. Once this build is completed, I want to trigger one more build that is present in different job. So I can able to use a post build action and use that option build another project. It will ask for the project name and I can able to enable the projects there. Like that, we have some options to send some email notifications or stop the doc containers. A lot of options are there. That means once the step is completed, once you complete your current step, what will be the next course of action? That is decided by the post build action. If I perform the application build here, once the application build is complete, what should I do? What is the next task I can give? I can able to notify the user, right? Through email. That is my next task. So to do that task, what I can do here is I can simply use my post build action and enable this plugin to send the emails. It's possible. I'll talk about that also in future. I'll show you how to set up the servers and use this post build actions. Clear. So like this, we can create any project and create some custom messages and run some shell commands or whatever task you're going to perform. You can able to manage it. And once the changes are ready, just save your job. Apply command will just apply the changes. And now you can go back to your dashboard. From here, you can go to your jobs dashboard and there is an option called build now option. If you run this, execute this command, this job will get executed. Can you see this? And this is the status of the job. The tick mark denotes it is successfully completed. And any job you build, it will be assigned with a build number. So we just execute the first build. So it is available here. If you run it again, it'll create another build. See, a new build is available. And if you want to check the status of the build, I just execute something and I just want to see the result or status of the job means you can go to the console output by clicking on this status. See, it directly takes you to console output. And here you can see the clear message like the job is started by this Jenkins user and it is running on your machine and it is running your creating a workspace in this Jenkins workspace folder. So it means in your Jenkins server, there is a folder called workspace folder gets created as soon as you create a job. As soon as you run the job. And now if you say ls, you can see the project available here. See, as of now, this job is not creating any file because we are just displaying it in the console itself. That's why this folder is empty. It is not creating any output files. Now, let me go to this job and let's create some files here. If I send the same content to a file and save the file, save this job. And if I run it again, see, as part of this build number 3, it has executed the job and it has created the workspace folder here. And it is printing the very first messages, hello everyone, because that is a message we're printing on screen. And the second message, the second command, it is not getting displayed. It is running the command, but the message is not getting because we are routing it to a file. So where the file is created means it will be created in this workspace. Now, if you go to that system, you can see the file available here. Easy. So you can consider, okay, like assume that this is a job where we perform some build and create the artifacts. And once the artifact is created, it's stored in the system's project workspace folder. So any developer, if they want to access this artifacts means they can directly have access to the Jenkins job dashboard here. They'll be having a view access and developers will not have access to directly log into this server like this. What they can do means from this job dashboard, we have an option called workspace option. If they get into this option, they can able to find the artifacts available here. If they want, they can access the file directly or they can download the file to the local machine. It's an application artifacts. What are the commands you issued here? This command will add new records to the same file, right? If you run it again, it creates another record in the same file. So like this, at any point of time, we can able to create a project folder and assign the application at all the build steps, whatever we're giving here, that is going to actually perform the task. Any command, shell command, you can run on the server. Easy. So this is just to make you understand how to create a freestyle project. But the actual thing, actual build, actual deployments, everything will be done through a pipeline scripts only. That is very much important. So like, for example, consider if you want to clean up, if you don't want to use existing file and if you want to clean up means in this job is there is something called a build environment, right? So here you can see something called delete workspace before build starts. So if the workspace folder is already present, it will delete that workspace folder, the project folder, and it create a new folder. Like that, you have an option to automatically delete that. Easy. And not only this, in order to work on any Jenkins project, right, we have to understand another important concept called variables. So in Jenkins, there are two types of variables. One we call it as environment variables, and another thing is the user-defined variables. So when I say environment variables, it's all a predefined variables, okay, used by Jenkins to manage the job-related details. Say, for an example, whenever we run or create any job, this job is having the name parameter. This is job name, the name of the job. So the name of a job will be stored in one environment variable called job name. Similarly, any job will be having the job URL. Any job will be having its own build number, like number 3 or 2, build status. And if you get into that output, this is the console output of the job, the status of the job. You can able to verify from here. So like this, each and every entity will be maintained in its own dedicated variables that we call it as a environment variables. It gets updated for each and every time whenever you run your job. So one should clearly understand what all the various environment variables we have and how to use it. So if you want to understand that, just go to your jobs configuration page. Let's say I'm on this configuration page. So from this config page, you can see something called see the list of available environment variables, right? From here, you can able to access it. This is one of the options to access it. So it will take you to a new page where you can able to get the list of complete list of environment variables support in the latest version of Jenkins. And everything has its own purpose also, okay? And it's all very much important. So in real-time environment, why we need these variables, for what purpose we use it means, consider as part of my application build, I want to send the email notification to the user. Let's say the job has failed and I just want to send them the email notification. So in that notification email, I have to mention the job name, which job is failing, and in that job, which build number is failing, right? Whether it's build number 3 or build number 2, right? And I should able to get them the actual console output also through my email itself. I want to send this link through the email. So in order to capture all these details, we need to be very clear about this variables. So a lot of things, like I talk about the build number, build ID, the job name, and build tag. Build tag is something associated like this. Like if you want, I can show you the example for now. So let me go to the job, and this is how we manage the data. So my requirement is when I run the job, I want to print the job name and the build number of the job. So let me save this job and run it again. As part of this build, I can see the very first statement is printing my message on the screen, and this second statement is routing the data to this output file, and the third line is printing the job name and job number. That is what it is. So this is a job name and this is a build number. So how we can capture these details means that is done through your environmental variable. So handling variables in Jenkins job is very much important. Okay. And the syntax rule here is if you want to print a value, right? If it is a constant value, you can simply say like this is a constant value, right? Within double quotes, you can give it. But if you want to handle any variable within a build step, there's a notation. Just enter the variable name. It should be enclosed using the curly brackets, prefix with dollar symbol. And any output that you want to print, it should be enclosed within double quotes. So this is what the syntax rule basically. All right. Any variable you want to use, just use within curly brackets and prefix with the dollar symbol and enclose everything within double quotes. Easy. Double quotes are mandatory here. And this curly brackets also, right? It is recommended to use curly brackets. It is not mandatory if it is one variable name and all, but if the variable name composed of any special characters and other continuation means you can use your curly brackets. So that's the reason as a best practice, you follow this method. Easy. So this is how we use our environmental variables. All right. Tomorrow, once I start with my actual projects and all, I'll show you how to use this and send through emails and all. I can able to show you how we can add this as a content of that email. So use a different variable means it's all custom variables. Okay, like say for an example here, consider this particular project. Whenever I run this job, it is going to get me the same result, right? So as a best practice, what we do means the project, whatever we create, it should be parameterized. It should be reusable. Do not create any Jenkins job for a specific team or for a specific project or build. The code, whatever you write, it should be a reusable one. So in order to reuse your existing code, we should parameterize it as much as possible. All right. So even in real time and all, we never create any pipeline projects or any freestyle project with some default configurations. We consider as a template. We create a pipeline template and we'll pass the required inputs at runtime. Right. So now I'll show you how to create an environmental variable. Sorry, what do you call this? User defined variables in this freestyle project. So just go to a project configuration page. And here, can you see there is an option under general tab, there is something called this project is parameterized. You click on this option, it will allow you to add some parameters here. So the Jenkins default package comes with all these parameters. If you want, you can able to go to your plugins manager and explore more parameters also. There are a lot of parameters available, supported by Jenkins. All right. So just go to your job configuration and select this option, this project is parameterized, and you can choose any parameter you want to add to this project. So any parameter you add will be having three, parameters to be updated. Let's say if I want to create a string parameter, for example. So this is a string parameter and it has three important parameters: a name, default value, and then description. So name it can be considered a variable name. Let's say I want to create a variable called environment, for an example here. And I want to assign default value as and the description. So it means assume that I'm going to create a project, and using this Jenkins project, I want to deploy my artifacts to a target environment. This target environment can be anything like QA, UAT, or production. Consider I have 3 environments and I want to deploy my artifacts, means I cannot create 3 different jobs because there's only one artifact, right? So unnecessarily, I need to create a number of jobs. So what I can do, I can create one job and I can able to simply parameterize it. This is one of the use case, real-time scenarios I'm saying here. So just create an environment variable as in default value and description. And this is just a process of declaring the variable. Once a variable is declared, how you can use it in your build step means it's simple, like how we used here, like echo. What is this? It can be the user defined variable, right? Dollar symbol. That's it. So here the variable name, envi. I think it's envi, right? Yes. So this is a one. Simple. So the value, whatever I'm going to pass at runtime or define as initial value, I want to handle it my build step, something like this. So let me save the job and run it again. So now if you can see here, as soon as I save the job with the parameter, the build option is coming with parameter here. It is expecting the input value, right? This is a variable name and it is giving a description. There's nothing but what we defined here. Variable name, default value, and the description. So I can able to enter any of these values like UAT. Default value is QA, but I want to give UAT at runtime input, just build the job. So now you can see the job has been executed successfully and I can see the data is getting captured. The runtime input, whatever I entered. You see? So it's all just a basic steps. Okay. It's like, building blocks. We are going to create a huge pipeline in the future. For all these things, these are the building blocks. Okay. Just understand how to create a job, how to execute a job, how to get to the console output and check the status of the job, how to parameterize it, how to assign the value to a parameter runtime. If you can understand all these things, right, with this knowledge, you can able to quickly create some enterprise level CSD pipeline projects. Easy. And very important thing is troubleshooting the jobs. Okay. Because what are things I'm executing here? It's all like a successful state. But sometimes what happens, there might be some issue with the job step, right? Let's say I just intentionally make some issues here and save the job. And if I run it again, see what happened here? It says failed. So once a job is failed, right, it is completely our responsibility. First response, the DevOps team responsibility, because we are the one who configured a job. So if you get any issues while running a job, just go to the job and understand what exactly happened in the job. Correct. If you go through the console output statements one by one, Jenkins it is going to provide a detailed description about the error. Whatever the issue it is, Jenkins will clearly give you in which line and what is the error. Only thing is we should have some patience to go through the console output step by step. As soon as you get any error, don't get panic. Okay. Troubleshooting is one of our responsibility. If there is any issues related to job configuration, we have to take ownership of it. And in real-time environment, it should not happen. Before you onboard the application, your job template, pipeline template should be thoroughly tested. And because of your configuration, there should not be any blockage there. But you can expect some issues from the application team. They might be missing some input files or their application test might fail, build might fail, right? So all those application related issues can be routed to development team through emails, notifications. That is their responsibility. But the job configuration is our response. Here, if you see this job configuration, it clearly says that the very first 2 statements or 3 statements are executed here. I mean, 2 statements are there, right? This one. These 3 lines of code is successfully executed. So issue occurs while running this command. And it clearly says that in line number 8, this particular command, whatever you're trying to pass, it is not available. So now if you go to the job configuration and if you verify, you can able to figure out what went wrong here. So it is just a small use case. Just use this technique to handle any type of errors. Go to the console. First, you should know, at least you should know how to locate the error. That is a primary step. As soon as you get the job status as failure, you should not select job is failing. Okay, this is a final result. But where it is failing, in which stage or which step it is failing, what is the reason for the failure? You should understand the error message properly. If you can locate and understand the error message, your 60% work is completed. Remaining 40%, you have to go and diagnose it and fix it. Simple. So this is all about creating a freestyle project and how to configure the build step, how to set up your, build step, how to get into the workspace folder. All these things are very much essential. And getting the console output, the navigation of these things, right? From the dashboard, you should know how to get into your jobs dashboard here. And from this job dashboard, you should know how to get into the configuration. All right, so let's get into the next level. We'll be discussing about the pipeline projects now. Okay, so far we were creating some freestyle projects, which is completely of manual configuration. And just for our internal, validations of plugins and testing purpose, we can use it. But when it comes to onboarding applications to DevOps practice, right? This particular process. So to achieve this, we'll be creating some pipeline projects actually. So I'll show you how to create a pipeline project template on Jenkins Master node, and then we'll see how we can integrate the same with our slave nodes. Because in real-time environment, it is recommended to understand the purpose of slave node and implement whenever required. Okay, so in the project also, I expect you people to try with slave configurations. Don't try to build any job strictly on the master node. Okay, so to create this, just go to your Jenkins dashboard. Let's create a new project. So I just tag it as a pipeline project 1 and choose a template as pipeline. Earlier we're using freestyle, now it is a pipeline template, and proceed to this. So if you compare the configuration of a pipeline project and any freestyle project, you can see in a freestyle project, we have these many options, tabs to configure, like general tabs, security, source code management, build triggers, build step, post build actions and all. But in our pipeline project, we have just general tab, advanced project options, and then directly the pipeline process. Because what all the build step and the post build step we created manually here, right? It can be done through script. That's the reason we have something called pipeline script tag or a script definition here. So here you can see a multi-line text box where you can able to enter your pipeline script. And one more thing I will tell you here is Jenkins, as I said, it is completely a self-documented tool. Okay, like during your job configuration or from your dashboard itself, if you need any reference or any support on any of these options, they have enabled the help option available for each and every option here. So for example, here, if you want to understand what it is all about, just use this option. You'll get the complete description about it. Similarly, at each and every stage, you can find the help message for your reference. So in the same manner, if you're completely new to pipeline projects, and if you want to create any pipeline script, as I said, the pipeline projects are created using Groovy scripts, right? And it composed of various stages. So how to write a Groovy script and create the stages means, in general, the pipeline projects are categorized as two types. One we call it as a scripted pipelines, and another thing is about declarative pipelines. So scripted pipelines are, we were using some initial days, like when Jenkins was introduced, right? When Jenkins was introduced, we were using a scripted pipeline, and to work on scripted pipeline, a person should have very strong knowledge in Groovy scripting. It uses a typical scripting language to prepare the pipeline script. Got it? It is a bit complex. Okay, initially we were using such complex approach to prepare our CSD pipeline projects. But over the period of time, right, apart from Jenkins, we have other tools also available in market. Like we talked about Bamboo, we talked about GitLab CI, we talked about Azure repos, or Azure pipelines, AWS code pipeline, right? So like this, there are a lot of other build orchestration tool came into picture, and their way of creating a pipeline is very easy and straightforward. They use some declarative scripts like YAML and JSON files. So using YAML scripts, if you write any pipeline means it's like a declarative one based upon key value pair, you can able to make it as a declarative script, right? But if you compare to Jenkins, it was still using a script pipeline, which requires a typical scripting language, right? So to overcome this, they have just created a simplified version of the script pipeline called as a declarative pipeline. So you can consider the declarative pipeline as a simplified version of your scripted pipeline, which doesn't require any core typical Groovy scripting knowledge, but you should know your objective of what you're doing. Correct? In each and every stage of your pipeline, what is your objective? What are the tools you're going to use? And what are the parameters you need for that tool? If you're clear with these things, it is very easy. Even a person who's completely new to Jenkins or who's not having much experience on scripting, they can able to quickly create the declarative pipeline. That much they have made the process easier. And there are various intuitive options also to work on declarative pipeline script. There's something called snippet generator. All these things are, introduced as part of your declarative pipelines only. Snippet generator means it just generates your pipeline scripts as per your input parameters. So you don't need to write a huge complex script based upon input parameters. It creates a script for each and every stage. It's possible. And in real-time environment, if you want to create any pipeline project, it is recommended to use declarative only. All right. So scripted pipelines are outdated. If you are working on any old projects, consider the project was developed years back. And if you are going to manage means, then you need some exposure to scripted pipelines, you'll be working on it. But any new pipeline project you create, it will be based upon declarative only, which is very easy to code, very easy to manage and enhance. Easy. So on this perspective, if you go to your job configuration, you can able to see something like your sample scripts here. Like as I said, you can use this help options to understand how to create a script. Just go to this sample pipelines. You can try some options like we have a sample template with the hello world. So this is a simple script. This is considered as a declarative pipeline script. Any declarative pipeline script starts with a keyword called pipeline. If it is a script pipeline, it starts with a keyword called node. So just by looking at the script, you should understand whether it is a scripted or declarative. If it starts with a keyword called pipeline, you can refer it as a declarative pipeline. Similarly, if you want, you can explore something like your GitHub with Maven. So this is also a declarative pipeline script, which composed of various stages. And this is an example for scripted pipeline, starting with node. All right. So maybe for today, try to understand how to write a pipeline script, understand the structure of the pipeline, how to write, how to start, what are the various stages we have, how to create a stage, everything. So in this particular script, if you see here, let me run this job once, I'll show you. So if I run this project, it is just to print a message, hello world message to the terminal, right? See, this is how a pipeline, it composed of various stages. The very first stage, what we execute is hello. Hello is a stage name. In that stage, we have a task to print the message. All the task definitions are defined within the steps. Steps are used to define the number of tasks and which can be part of any specific stage here. And as part of this job execution, you can see this job is started by this user and is running on a Jenkins master node. It has created one workspace folder for this project. And the very first stage, hello, is a stage name that get executed and printing message, and process successfully completed, right? So like this, we can able to prepare declarative pipeline scripts with various stages. So how to create a stage means it's very simple. Under stages, you can have a number of stage definitions like this. But ensure that the stage name is unique. Always a stage name should be uniquely defined. So just copy this and have it here. Apply the changes and run it again. Task, it can be anything. Okay, just understand the structure of your pipeline script. So here, this pipeline is started with 3 stages, like hello 1, 2, and 3. And it is running its own task there. Correct. And while running this pipeline, where it has to be executed, whether it has to run in the master node or any other node that is available, that will be decided by this agent. This agent parameter that is used to identify the node where you want to build your job or run your job. When you say agent as any, Jenkins will automatically identify the available agent and run your job. As of now, we just have a master node. That's why it is running in the master node. Tomorrow, if you configure your slave nodes, in that case, it will get into that slave node and build the job. Any node which is available at that point of time, it uses the node for execution. Or if you want, you can able to explicitly give a node name by using this label. You can assign one tag or label. And if you assign the label for this project, the job will get executed in the particular node. Easy. So this is how we prepare our pipeline, right? I said pipeline composed of various stages. So now let's talk about CI/CD. So now when I talk about the CI/CD pipeline, my objective is to identify the source code, perform build, create the artifacts, right? So let's say as part of my DevOps approach, I want to automate all these things. I need to perform application build, perform unit testing, do the code promotion, and then send the email notifications. So each and everything is considered as individual stage here. So how I can prepare this means, let me take this same example. So I want to prepare the very first stage, that is to identify my application source code. So what I can do here, I can call it as a checkout stage. So first stage is used to perform async checkout. I'll tell you how to do the async checkout and all through some Git command or plugins. But as of now, understand the structure of the pipeline. Okay. And once async checkout is completed, I want to perform the application build, right? Like this, we can prepare a application build. As part of this build, I can able to perform the automated unit testing as well as I can create the artifacts, application artifacts. Once the application artifact is ready, what is the next step? I can promote or deploy to QA environment. Simple. So it's a stage name and there's a task I'm going to perform. So now if you run this, it is just like a template or a skeleton we are preparing here. So if you want, you can directly go and check the console output of the job for each and every stage. What are the actions we're going to perform? And also we have something called stage view, right? You can see here, there is something called stages on the jobs dashboard. If you click on that option, you can see what all stages we performed here. So in my latest build number 3, I'm having 3 stages. First is to async checkout, application build and deploy. So if you want to understand what are the commands we have executed here, or if you want to directly go to console output, you can use this option like this. And it is the overall status of the console, like at what time it started, how much time it took. And if you want to go to the intermediate stage, you can able to click on that option here. Like each and every stage of my job, how much time it took, what is the output of the particular stage. And second stage, printing this message. Third stage, there's a message, right? Easy. So like this, we can able to understand the status of a job through this stage view also. This view is applicable only for your pipeline project. So it's very easy for us to know, monitor the flow of your execution. So now we have prepared a template. Okay, just understand how to prepare the pipeline template and run it on your Jenkins Master node. But the actual implementation, I want to show it through your slave nodes, like SCM checkout stage or application build or deployment. Everything I want to do it in my slave node. So the next topic here is about configuring your Jenkins master and slave nodes. Once we prepare the slave node, instead of doing our builds in our master, we can directly assign our slave node for implementation, right? So how to prepare a slave node? First, you need to understand the purpose of it. So I just clearly mentioned here. So let me reiterate here itself. Like, so what is the purpose of my slave node here? It is to perform some Java application build. So in order to perform a Java application build, what are the tools I need? So in that slave node, I need to install all those tools, right? So here also I need Git. Why? Because my first stage is to perform async checkout. It has to clone that repository. The application source code is available in the source code repository, which is maintained by the developer. And in order to bring that source code, we need the Git to be installed on the machine. And since it is a Java-based application, we need to install JDK. And in addition to this, we need to have some build tool like Maven. I want to use Maven as my application build tool. So I need to install Maven as well. So in my slave node, I need these 3 tools now for application build. So before we actually install this, let's understand something about the build tools. Listen carefully. So Maven is an Java application build tool. Okay, so using Maven, we can able to prepare some Maven projects. It can be a simple Java-based console applications or web applications, or even it can be a Spring Boot web application framework we can prepare. So the main objective of Maven project is we can able to automate the builds. We can able to automate the unit level testing as well by using some dependencies. So whenever you work on any Maven project, right, it composed of 2 important entities. One we call it as a pom.xml file. It is nothing but project object model. And another thing is Maven goal. So these are 2 important entities that we need. Goal is just to define the objective for what purpose you're doing this, whether you want to compile a code or test or create artifacts, depends upon the goal, we can able to achieve that. So what is the need for this pom.xml file? Means it is something used and managed by the developer. They will maintain this pom.xml file to maintain the dependencies of the application. Say for an example, consider I have a Java project and I just want to perform the automated builds and perform the automated unit testing. So to perform the automated build, I need a Maven plugin. And to perform the automated unit testing, I need some unit testing tools like JUnit or TestNG. So if those tools are not present in the build server, assume that in this build server, we never install any JUnit testing tool, right? I want to perform build here and I just have Maven. I don't have anything called JUnit testing tool or TestNG or even a Selenium kind of testing tool is not available here. So what I can do means while preparing the form XML file, I can able to consider that as a dependency. So this file is used to maintain the dependencies and the plugins that is required to build your project. Easy. It is used to maintain the dependencies and the plugins to build your project. It's very simple as that. And how to prepare it, I'll show you. And it is something managed by the development team. Okay, even we will not have any control on maintaining those entities. As part of the application source code, developers will maintain it. So let me add few pointers here. I'll be adding few pointers to your Maven, and then I'll show you an example with it. Okay, so the next important point here is about the how Maven tool works. So ultimately, the source code is just programs, right? This which is developed by the users, and it will maintain a source code repository. And the GitHub repositories are something used to maintain the application source code, not the artifacts. So that application source code repository acts as the input to your build actually. Okay. So let's say for an example, consider if I talk about the Maven tool, you can consider like this. It's not a raw program. Okay. It is just a program written in high level language. That's it. So ultimately this Maven build tool, it is based upon Java build and used to compile your Java application source code, perform the unit level testing, and then create the artifact. These are three main objectives of Maven. So how we can able to perform this means we can able to add this Maven project. So in general, people who work on your Maven project, right? The project structure will be something like this. Consider we are preparing one Java web application and it is based upon Maven. If it is a Maven project, we'll be having a source folder. Under source folder, we can have something called main folder, which composed of the actual source code, application source code. It is nothing but the business logic. And then we have another subfolder called test, where we can maintain the test cases. We means that developers will maintain the test cases. So SRC is completely used to maintain the business logic as well as the test cases to perform the unit level testing. Now, once we perform the build, the artifacts will be created in this target folder. Target folder also will be part of this project folder here, which is maintained in the local machine. When now we perform the application build, it creates artifacts in the target folder. And how the artifacts are prepared, how the build is performance by using this POM.xml file. So I told you POM.xml file is the file that is created by the developer and maintained in that source code repository, right? So using this POM.xml file, we can able to define all the required dependencies and properties of application artifacts. So these are things you can understand. So project object model will be part of your application project source code repository. And it is basically used to define the properties of the application artifacts. Means developers will maintain the dependencies and the plugins required to perform the build and unit testing. And apart from this, there is something called JRE libraries and Maven libraries. All these things are considered as the, what do you call that? The source dependent components. Like depends upon the dependencies, whatever we maintain this project, it prepares this library as part of source code repository. So once it is pushed to remote repository, we use this POM.xml file to identify the dependencies. And through the Maven goal, we can able to implement our application builds and unit level testing. But the point here is how your Maven can able to access this POM.xml file and identify dependencies and perform task. For that, we need to rely on these goals. Listen, please. So Maven goals defines the action which we want to perform using that project. So we have some goals like MVN compile. If your intention is to compile your application source code, just say mcompile. It just compiles the code and create and produce the status of the compilation, throws the compilation errors if anything exists. Correct. And if your intention is to perform the unit testing, that means when you say MVN test, it will compile the code and perform the automated unit testing as well. So no need to give a compile and test command. Directly you can say test. Test will perform both compilation as well as unit level testing. If your intention is to create the artifacts along with it, you can simply say MVN package. So developers, if their intention is to compile the code, perform unit testing and create the artifacts, they can simply use a Maven package goal, and they'll be getting artifacts in the target folder. And apart from there's something called mvn clean that is used to clean the existing target folder. Let's say if the target folder is already having some war file or artifacts they want to clean up, means we can use mvn clean. So for example, if I say mvn clean package, means first it will clean up the target folder and then it will perform the code compilation, test, and then create the artifacts in the target folder. So this Maven goal is what we need to give as part of our build stage here. In this build stage, I can simply say mvn clean and package after identifying source code. All right. So this is just about the Maven build tool. So all that you need to understand here is what is Maven and how Maven works. So Maven works based upon two important entities. One is pom.xml file and another thing is Maven goal. All right. And how this Maven can able to identify the dependencies. Let's say in my pom.xml file, I just define JUnit testing as a tool to perform automated testing, or I mentioned my Spring Boot compiler, or I just mentioned like Selenium. So if I mention any dependencies or plugins in this file, how the Maven can able to download means it gets downloaded from the Maven repository. So this Maven repository, if you want, I can show you this. So this is the URL, okay, from where you can able to understand the list of Maven dependencies which we can use, artifacts. So if you are using JUnit means you can search for it here. It's a JUnit dependency. So which version of JUnit they want to use, they can get into that version and they can simply add these dependencies in the file. Dependency as JUnit along with the version. Similarly, if they want to work on Selenium, Selenium is another automated testing tool for Java-based application. They can able to refer this latest and include as part of the application source code repository in the pom.xml file. Got it? Like this, developers will maintain the dependencies and it gets downloaded from this Maven repository. Easy. So two things you need to understand. One is your pom.xml file, another thing is Maven goal. So Maven is used to perform application builds and create the artifacts, and optionally you can able to perform the automated unit testing also. So in order to maintain the dependencies and the plugins to perform application build, Maven refers the pom.xml file, and in order to perform the task or the objective, it uses a Maven goal. So it's all purely depends upon the application team's requirement. Okay, even as a DevOps team, we never get any privilege to change these parameters or anywhere. Sometimes what happens, in real-time environment, let's say as a developer, they maintain some POM file. They just identify the application artifacts. Okay, so let's say if I talk about JUnit, I'm giving you one use case, real-time scenario here. So let's go to this JUnit here. So they want to use some version of this plugin on their application source code repository. So if you can see here, there are some packages with some vulnerability, right? So without proper knowledge, if they simply copy this version 4.7 is having some security threat. So developers will not aware of all these things. That is where the DevSecOps comes into picture. Before you actually identify the changes to the higher environment, we'll do a complete code quality study. Code scan will be done, and it will be capturing all these vulnerabilities as part of the source code. And if there's any vulnerabilities identified, the changes will not move to higher environment. Like that, from DevOps perspective, we can able to maintain some gateway to handle your security threats and all. But still, you are not authorized to change this parameter. It should be done only by the developers because it's all your application source code component, right? So that is the reason where we use something called DevSecOps, right? So we'll introduce some code quality check, like Sonaki that I was talking about it right in our earlier module. So we have something called a code quality analyzer, through which we can analyze the vulnerabilities, threats, and check whether the code has been done as per the coding standard. All those things, the code quality, everything will validate from there. Easy. So this is about your Maven build tool, which we are going to use in our project. So now to run your application build through our pipeline, we need a source code repository. What we'll do here, I'll show you how this repository looks like. So here it is. So as I said, any project folder, application project folder will be having the source code under SRC main with Java programs, and under test will be having the unit test cases and all. And the target folder will not be published to your source code repository, that in a remote environment. We use some git ignore file to filter it out, as we talked during our git module. Like this, what are all the components we need to ignore? You can able to ignore it. Like if you don't want to expose this Maven libraries or JRE or target folder, that can be done through your git ignore itself. Now, under SRC folder, you can find something called main folder, where you can find the source code, the web applications. It's a Java based application, actually, nothing else. Just a Java programs will be there. And under test folder, we'll be having the test cases. All right. And we have something called git ignore, which maintains all the files to be ignored. I don't want those files to be tracked by Git. So I can have the git ignore there, and the POM is something which I was talking about now. So this file is used to maintain the dependencies, like the application build properties, like what is the name of the artifacts I want to create, what is the version number, what type of package I want to create, whether it is an application war file or jar file, and what are the dependencies we have. Like I want to have a dependency called the Spring Framework, as well as a Selenium HQ, and I can use JUnit, right? And then I have something called Java Code Coverage Maven plugin. So this is just to generate some code coverage reports. Once you perform build and unit testing, how much code has been tested, how much code has been successfully executed, how many test cases are pending. Like this, we can able to verify the Java code coverage. And we have something called Spring Boot, framework, as well as some plugins to build your Maven. So like this, it's all completely developers responsible to maintain the dependency. This is what I was showing you from that repository here. Like if you can see this, the JUnit dependency, right? So this one. So developers will capture these details from the repository and maintain in their source code here, like this. It's a dependency. Like this, for each and every tool, you can refer this particular thing. And this repository can be a local repository or it can be remote repository, the central repository, which we call, which is public repository. But apart from that, enterprise level, we'll be having our local Maven repositories. It's possible, which is secured. So this is about the application source code repository. So one should clearly understand, okay, what is a Maven build tool, how it actually works, what are the components of Maven project, and especially this Maven goal, because this is what something we're going to use in our pipeline stage to perform the build and create the artifacts. And that is also depends upon developer's requirement. We can't directly code like Maven clean package. Okay, sometimes developer wants to just compile the code and check for the compilation errors alone. So it's all depends upon their requirement. We can make some custom changes. And in next session, we'll focus on other important areas, like starting from the master slave architecture. We'll be working on it.